welcome to another episode of The Shift with Elena Agar, where we empower performance and leadership. At Shift, this is not just a podcast. It is a powerhouse of taking ownership of your own performance, growth, and leadership education. It's an opportunity to shift yourself in the direction of your potential and impact others around you. The podcast is your gateway to a world of behavior change-based insights, psychology research, and knowledge from guest speakers, gathering years of experience in the corporate world as well as entrepreneurship. With years of coaching and mentoring, my mission is simple: to make every moment you spend with me and my guests actionable and empowering. In this episode of The Shift, I've interviewed Lynne Williams, who is a resume and LinkedIn coach, and the passion she has for resumes has yet to be seen, and it really comes through in this conversation that I've had. She also gave some really practical tips about LinkedIn, for job search. What do you do? What are the biggest mistakes people make? And so on. And talked about her inspiring journey of the nonprofit work and the work that she's involved in, where people can take advantage of free counseling and resources around career development. So check it out. Lynne, welcome to the Shift podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Delighted to be here.
So I'm very excited to talk to you for many different reasons, but particularly because something I want to get into is you're actually doing a whole doctoral program on the topic of LinkedIn and how it helps with careers, or maybe doesn't. We're going to find that out in just a moment as we get into this conversation. But you also are one of the top resume writers. This is what you do. This is your day-to-day. So creating LinkedIn profile resumes, and I feel it's so relevant to my audience. So super excited to get into that. But also you have a lot of different other activities like nonprofit that you kind of participate in. So very interesting background, but I want to just go ahead and get into the doctoral on LinkedIn. Tell me more.
Okay, so I'm doing a qualitative study on the topic of LinkedIn for job seekers who are digital immigrants. So a digital immigrant is somebody who is a Gen X or a boomer. So I'm targeting that specific age group because, you know, the boomers and Gen X were born after born before the age of technology, or the quote unquote net generation. So, you know, people can learn to be digital learners. But there are some people that still haven't gotten the memo that they still need to, you know, keep on doing lifelong learning and especially learning technology skills.
And what are you finding so far? Without giving too much, juice away, but what are you finding so far?
Well, I'm still, you know, in my research stage, and what I'm finding is there aren't a lot of doctoral dissertations or research on the topic. So basically, I feel I'm rather pioneering, you know, on the topic. So I have to pull in research, you know, about networking or personal branding or job search strategies, you know, into the dissertation. And then when I start interviewing people about LinkedIn and their experiences, it's going to be talking about their lived experiences. So that's why it's a qualitative dissertation instead of quantitative. But I got to get working on it. So it's I'm going to be busy this weekend. I've committed the majority of my weekend to get working on it.
You know, I'm very interested in that because I've my audience who's heard me speak before, I always say LinkedIn is good for two things. This is my opinion, and I'm really, really interested to kind of hear your thoughts on it. But I said it's good for two things. Number one, connecting and kind of staying in touch with people, and whether it's for job search or just colleagues, and kind of staying in touch with people. And number two, to grow a personal brand, particularly if your audience is a corporate kind of, because a lot, you know, maybe if your audience is in other industries, it may not be the place for you, but just depending on your industry, I feel like it's a great platform to build your personal brand. But I don't see it, and that's as far as like it touches on job search, which is very, I guess that's a big part of job search, right?
Yeah, a lot of people think that LinkedIn is just for job search. It is not. It is for your own profile, your own digital profile to build your personal brand. So if you are a working adult, you know, I believe you should have a LinkedIn profile, as do 950 plus million other people. And it is great for job seekers, but it's also great for people who are employed or self-employed. So a lot of business gets done, with people connecting and building relationships on LinkedIn. And I've met some amazing people that I never would have had an opportunity to meet had LinkedIn not existed. And I even got to meet some of them in real life. I went to LinkedIn headquarters in New York in June and July of 2023, and got to see some familiar faces that I'm connected with. So it was a lot of fun.
That's amazing. Yeah. I still see people kind of using LinkedIn in a very yes, it's a platform to network, but more a platform to build relationships. So talk to me a little bit about that, especially from a job seeking perspective, because you do a lot of work around that. So
yeah,
how can we utilize LinkedIn a little bit better?
So to me, networking is essential. I think you've probably heard that up to about 80% of jobs are found via networking. And even Dick Bowles, the author of What Color's Your Parachute, I think in 1980 in the New York Times, he published that statistic. And it's true. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. And, it's not bots that hire people, it's people that hire people. So when you're on LinkedIn, you get to, connect with people or stalk people and comment on their posts and whatnot. So it's just an amazing platform for job seekers because they can leverage their second level connections for introductions to that other person's first level connections, because everybody should have a target company list when they are a job seeker. And if you have somebody you're connected with that is connected with somebody else that works at that target company, you could get a warm introduction and you could reach out and maybe have an informational interview or something like that, and ask the person, you never ask for a job, but ask the person questions, hey, how did you get into this role? And tell me about the culture of the company. And, how have you, created your trajectory of your career ladder and made so many jumps in this company. It must be a wonderful company to work for. So you get people, talking about themselves, and then you never know. Maybe they will roll out the red carpet for you and say, oh, thank you so much for this information. I saw a job, online, and I really am glad to hear about the culture of the company being so wonderful. And so, I think I am going to go and apply for that. Well, if that person says, hey, I happen to know the hiring manager for that particular job, maybe I can send your resume over to him. Well, you just got the red carpet rolled out for you. And maybe that person gets an employee referral bonus. So it all can start on LinkedIn. When you were little, you were told not to talk to strangers, right? But now we're, especially in job search and in, career advancement mode, you need to talk to strangers.
It's very interesting. I'm curious, people that are listening to this, either it's super motivational and inspirational, or it's dreadful as hell, because because people that are more introverted, who have never gone, how do I reach out, what do I say, right? And the other flip side of this is, and this is my personal pet peeve, and I think I've just blogged about this recently, is LinkedIn is for that connection and networking, right? And we all understand that there are people that are very busy. I get that. I'm also busy. But I think that the piece I wrote is around, oh my gosh, professional courtesy. And I agree with you. If more people would have that approach to LinkedIn, that it's there to network, whether you're looking for a job today or not, you might be one day, you might need help from somebody. So, what I'm trying to get is my pet peeve is when people are just kind of there, but they don't interact. They don't, no matter what you pitch to them, they're just not interested in interacting, which makes it very frustrating for a lot of job seekers that are out there. So I'm curious about that.
Well, in my opinion, you have to make networking a habit. Okay, whether you're an introvert or extrovert, you've got to make it a habit. So if you are an introvert, I think LinkedIn is a golden opportunity to reach out to other people, because you don't need a wingman or a wingwoman, like you might need at an in-person networking event. You could just reach out to them, but you have to do it in not a spammy, slimy, icky way. If you ask people questions, you don't want to ask for a job, but if you ask questions or ask if they'd be willing to talk about the culture of their company, or their career trajectory, people love talking about themselves. So if you approach it the right way, then hopefully the door will open for you when you knock, and you can start that relationship and have that conversation.
Yeah, it sounds like it's almost a numbers game when it comes to LinkedIn, right? It's like the more people you reach out to, the more chances you might have of actually, some of them responding. I think it's like 1/3 response rate. Is that, or even if you do quality reach outs?
I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what the response rate is, but it's not just reaching out in DMs. It's also commenting. Your commenting strategy is just as important as your posting strategy. So, you want to be rewarded by the algorithm. So you need to engage on the platform. If you just, sit there and wait to be found, right? That may not happen. You got to put yourself out there. And if you have a target company list, maybe you find people in the department that you would like to work in those target companies. And you make a list of some people that you could make comments on if they happen to be active on LinkedIn. Not everybody's active, which is, it's like 3 to 4% of people are active on LinkedIn. But if you do find people active on LinkedIn, you keep commenting on their post over and over and over. And that's before you maybe reach out to them to ask for connection requests. And then when you ask for connection requests, you can say, hey, I've really been enjoying your content on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect, and be first level connections. So that's another kind of back way into the door, so to speak, making yourself visible. And when you comment with quality comments, it's visibility, it's credibility, and it's discoverability. I have been on podcasts. I have been a speaker. I've been a writer. I've commented on other people's posts, and I have people contacting me because of that. So you have to put yourself out there in some way, shape, or form, in my opinion, as a speaker or a writer, so that you can share your expertise.
Yeah, I tend to agree for that. I love LinkedIn for content creation. You mentioned 3 to 4% are active on LinkedIn. Did you mean 3 to 4%? What do you mean? 3 to 4% out of what?
950 million.
Oh, really? It's that low in terms of active, like actually posting and etc. Yeah, I mean that makes sense. I can see how that's interesting. That's very low. So people are not even utilizing to the best of their ability. And I think part of it is because
absolutely not.
The personal brand is like a thing. Like people don't, many people are missing out on this personal brand building.
Absolutely. It's important to not have the standard banner of the greenish grayish blobs. Build a banner that it's your billboard. It's your advertisement of who you are and what you do. And don't put your job title in the headline. That's Manhattan real estate. You've got 220 characters. You can put keywords in there that are like really important, and a key title. And then you can put something called a USP, unique selling proposition. And that way you can maybe stand out and make yourself memorable. So I use a headline analyzer. It's called ShareThrough. So it's headlines.sharethrough.com. And I take people's headlines and I pop that in, and you get an overall score, you get an engagement score, and you get an impression score. So if you want to think of that like a traffic light, you want green, not yellow or red. right?
Mm.
So green, green, green for all three scores, if at all possible. Mine might be green, yellow, green. Sometimes you got to say what you got to say because you got to say it, and it doesn't always work out, the way that you want with the headline analyzer, but it does give you an indication of how your headline is appealing to other people, and are you going to be memorable? So, for example, you can look up words on LinkedIn. If you had looked at somebody's profile, I'm going to give you an example. Her name is Tanya Kozman with a K. So if you looked up her profile and you couldn't remember her name a few months down the road, but you remembered what she did, she does franchising, franchise coach, right? So if you put in franchise and something memorable from her headline, you'd be able to find her. Well, what's unique about her headline? There's a saying in there, something like better than a triple dip ice cream with a trifecta of solutions, because she runs 3 businesses. So if you remembered franchise and ice cream, or franchise and trifecta, you'd be able to go back and find her. It probably made you smile if you saw ice cream and the word ice cream in somebody's headline, right? It's to make an impression. It's to be memorable. So there's a guy, I don't know if you ever heard of him. Have you ever heard of Steve Woodruff?
I don't think so.
Okay, so Steve Woodruff wrote this article about an elevator pitch being with a memory dart. And a memory dart is a vivid image. And your elevator pitch should be about 15 seconds. Because if you go on and blabber on for a couple of minutes, people aren't going to remember that.
Right.
So, hi, my name is Lynne Williams. I guide you to your keywords to beat the bots. Lynne Williams. Oh, Lynne, what's this beat the bots thing? And then we can engage in conversation. Oh, well, I believe in doing data-driven decision making, with regards to keywords, because you can quantify, here's the doctoral, stuff coming out in me for the research. And it's important, to keep it short and sweet and become memorable. And I love that vivid image idea.
I love that. I mean, we all know about elevator pitches, but I love that image. And I think that's such an important piece, because it's like, well, you just have to summarize what you do, but it's not that. If you it's just something short, but something to because it's a conversation starter, right? Like, well, tell me more. What do you mean by that? So that's really cool. I'm sure there's plenty, but biggest mistakes you see people make on LinkedIn. Give me like top 2.
Not being active. That's the biggest one. And then not building their brand, like their headline and their banner. Like, when you think about a newspaper, what sells? It's the headline. When you go to somebody's website, you've got top of the fold, right? Before you scroll down. So your banner and your headline, that's the top of the fold. You've got to put your best foot forward there. And you got to put stuff in the featured section, because that's, and you got to keep that, fresh, so that people will always want to come back, to see what it is that you're up to.
Yeah, but then that means they have to do a whole lot of other things, Lynne. It's not just they have to actually do something outside of LinkedIn to be able to put stuff in LinkedIn. I think that's what people's like, well, what do I put, right? If they're not already active in like the space that you and I are active in, you know what I mean, where we publish and we write and we talk about things.
Well, if you at least make a commitment to do 1 post a week and make it consistent, like at the same day of every week, and then you could put that in your featured section. So it doesn't have to be a newsletter or an article. It could just be a post. But if you do get a chance to write a newsletter or at least an article, you have an opportunity to share your expertise in whatever your niche is.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you got to start somewhere, I guess. But I just see a lot of, especially people that are very in corporate careers, because also corporate, a lot of bigger companies have really strict communication policies around how people present themselves. So sometimes you know, for better or for worse, people's brands have to be associated with the companies they work for, even their banner. I don't agree with that personally, but I'm curious what you think about that. Like these, you know what I mean? Like, not to go against communication policies of companies, but I feel like your LinkedIn is your LinkedIn. And technically, company
Amen.
can't, you know what I mean? It's your LinkedIn. It doesn't matter if you work for company X or Y. It doesn't matter what banner you want to put, you know what I mean, right? Like, but I feel like some companies are truly like, they have rules against that.
So my youngest daughter works for the third largest IT staffing company in the country, and she's a company girl. She has her company banner, you know, as part of her LinkedIn, and that's fine. I mean, but if I were her, I would make it her banner with, you know, her image or her unique selling proposition or something. It's not who you work for, it's what you do.
Right.
So it's just like an entrepreneur. You know, you don't want to say CEO of XYZ printing company. Okay. That's not what people are looking for. They don't care what your title is per se, at least in the headline, because they can see that in the experience section.
Right.
They want to know that you do, you know,
X, Y, and Z, yeah.
printing press and large format, or, you know, whatever it is. People are looking for people by keywords.
Right.
So, you know, ditch the title and you know, get to the meat of the matter of what you do and the problems that you solve, and you know, maybe who your target audience is.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Can we shift a little bit towards resumes? Because I feel a pain point for so many, myself included, when I was in a job seeking mode. I mean, for God's sakes, why do we have to go through the process of sending a resume and then why do companies go through all of that pain to actually fill in every piece for the ATS? Do you know what I mean? Like, why? Like, why?
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. When I was first doing presentations on the ATS a decade ago, there were over 200 ATS systems. Do you know there's over 500 now? In the past 10 years, over 500. It is insane. So we don't have a universal platform, you know, with one universal ATS system. If we did, you know, life would be a lot easier. But we live in a country, you know, based on capitalism and free economy, and you know, this is how people and businesses, you know, make their money. But you have to have a document that is readable by the bots. So lots of people take these fancy dancy templates from Canva. I love Canva. I use it every day, but never, never, never for a resume. And there's other, you know, fancy dancy resume templates with all kinds of colors and columns and charts and tables. And, you know, you need something that's functional. That's going to be read by the bot. Just know. Yeah. So I believe in having two resumes. I think for a human, a little pop of color is nice. So I like, you know, like I use light blue bands on my resumes. It's kind of like if you're going to do a PowerPoint, you're going to tell them what you're going to tell them, you're going to tell them, and you tell them what you just told them. Well, when you get to a resume and a LinkedIn, you can only do the first two steps. You're going to tell them what you're going to tell them, and you're going to tell them. So it's kind of like LinkedIn. You have a section, you know, and then you tell them. You have a section, and then you tell them. So by having the pop of color on the resume, it draws the human eye to the pop of color, so they know what they're going to read in that section. But you have to deconstruct the resume so that you don't have the shading and the lines and the borders and you know, wingdings. Like I only use solid black bullet points because those convert nicely. And I convert a resume to a Arial 12-point font, even though the pretty resume I use Calibri 11-point font. But on the deconstructed resume for the bots, from the research that I did, granted it was 10 years ago and technology has changed, but I still think it's kind of best practices to deconstruct the resume and have it simple black and white for the box.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, resumes is just like, and now I hear a lot around video resumes, right? Like, do you see them becoming more popular? Like, should we just have video resumes? Like, you know what I mean? Just to hook somebody, like, wouldn't a recruiter be more interested to look at a video resume, right? Like, granted, the person knows how to make it attractive and stuff like that. Like, what do you think about that?
Well, different strokes for different folks, right? Not everybody has video skills. And not everybody has writing skills either for a resume. That's why, you know, there happen to be resume writers and career coaches out there in the world. But you know, you need something in writing that can go into a database. So an ATS system is a database. There's fields. There's the first name field, the last name field, the phone number field, you know, the company name, city, state, date field, title field, and then you put your accomplishments. So it's got to be readable. Now, you know, I know video resumes are cool, but again, you know, diversity, equity, inclusion, belonging, accessibility, justice, you know, it's not going to work for everybody out there because they're not going to have, you know, the skills, the equipment, etc.
Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely. I didn't think of it from that perspective. Okay, let's settle the debate of 2 pages, 3 pages, 4, however long. What is the ideal size and length of a resume?
It's individualized. My favorite is a 2-page. I think, you know, the resume is basically to get you in the door to get an interview. Okay. Then you take it from there. So it's a highlight. I typically go back 12 to 15 years, maybe 10 to 15 years. It depends on the person, because I think it's important to put keywords in. I put them in alphabetical order because I think a recruiter or a hiring manager is going to look at it and say, oh, must-haves, nice-to-haves. Oh, she also has. So then I put core competencies in, or career highlights in, and that's like over your entire career. It's more than a keyword. It's a bucket where you can share your accomplishment, perhaps in a star story, situation, task, action, result, you know, where you can quantify something. How'd you help a company make money, save time, improve processes? You know, what are your sweet spots? And it needs more of an explanation than just a keyword. So if I can fit stuff on 2 pages, I will. I just had a client and I'm like, I am challenged getting you on 2 pages. I can do 3. Why? Because she had been in a hospital for almost 33 years, climbed the ladder so many times. So with all the other stuff that I put, you know, on the above the fold to catch the attention, I could have only put 2 of her last jobs out of, I don't know how many jobs she had, 10 at the hospital. And then I would have had to put one-liners saying X hospital job, X hospital job, X hospital job. So, you know, if everything's on LinkedIn, you really can get away with 2 pages. But there are some senior level executives where sometimes a 3-page is kind of a necessary thing. But I've taken PhD resumes, 7, 8 pages. I'm like, no, you're not. We're not doing this. Nobody's going to read this. So, you know, you want to enter the corporate world and leave academia, you know, I'm going to take you down to 2 pages, and we'll reinvent you here. So that's always fun. I don't know. I love writing resumes, and I love writing them for different people in different industries because it's a challenge for me. It's a new set of keywords and new situation and circumstance. I'm a former K-12 teacher, and I used to write IEPs, individual education plans, and GIEPs, gifted individual education plans for students. You know, you have an objective, you have a baseline, and you go from the beginning of the school year to the end of the school year. Well, it was all writing these, you know, individual education plans. So to me, writing a resume and a LinkedIn profile for an adult is like their GIEP. How do you get them from point A to point B to rise to meet their potential and help them look better online and on paper.
More power to you. One of the first things I tell my clients, I said, I do career strategy. I do not do resumes. But anybody who's listening who needs a resume and who's been my client, even Lynne is your person. I am not that person. More power to you. I don't have a patience for it. It's it's awesome that you enjoy it. That's amazing.
I do.
You're
I do enjoy.
You're
I like
genuinely
writing.
excited about it. Yeah, like I've never heard somebody talk about resumes as excited as you are. That's awesome.
Well, I love incorporating the data-driven decision making, because aside from writing the chapter in a book, okay, let me backtrack. In 2014, I wrote an article for the ATD, Association of Talent Development, and it was on the applicant tracking system. Then in 2016, they asked me to write a chapter in a book, and I did. It was on applying for jobs, but it was heavily emphasized on the ATS. So 15 other career coaches around the country contributed to the book, and Dick Bowles, the very famous Dick Bowles, who wrote What Color's Your Parachute, he wrote the foreword in the book, and that was published in October 2016. He sadly passed away in April of 2017. So, I was honored to be, asked to write a chapter in the book. But I also tinker in WordPress websites, and I put my blogs in, and I tinker with the SEO, search engine optimization, and keywords and whatnot on the back end. So I apply my knowledge from building SEO and websites, and the knowledge that I gained from doing all the research on the applicant tracking system to LinkedIn. Isn't LinkedIn a website? Isn't it a database based on keywords? Yeah. So I have some senior level executives who I say, you got homework. There's only you can have your aha moments about your keywords, and this is your future. And they're like, oh, can't we get an admin to do this? I'm like, no, give me half an hour, give me an hour, do the work, and then come back and tell me that you aren't fascinated with the research. And they all wind up doing the work, even at the C-suite, because they're learning about the impact of keywords. And when you have a job description, you have to customize and tailor the resume to that job description. So if you've got a good, solid, foundational base resume, and you've got an easy peasy format, to tweak out those keywords, then it's not as big of a task as you would think. And what the heck? I don't know about you, but I'm using ChatGPT every day. It gives me fodder. It makes my job easier. It analyzes things. Like it's a starter, and it's free. So I love it.
Yeah, it's like a little brainstorm buddy. If you don't have anybody to
use
brainstorm
everything,
right? Yeah,
you can't use everything verbatim, but it sure does help get a starter.
Yeah, absolutely. So you do many things around LinkedIn and resumes, but also you devote some time to some of the nonprofit work that you do. So talk to me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. Okay, so in 2010, there was a group that was formed on Meetup called Philadelphia Area Great Careers Group. The two leaders that founded it came to me in 2015 and said, Lynne, we don't want to do this anymore. Will you take over the Meetup group? So, it's time, it's money, and, you got to put forth some effort. I said, okay. So I took over the Meetup group, and then I wanted to turn it into a 501c3 nonprofit. My mom sadly passed away in 2016, so I had to put that dream on hold for a year because I had estate matters I had to take care of. So in 2017, I filed to make the Philadelphia Area Great Careers Group a 501c3 nonprofit. I put a board together, and we've been cranking ever since. Well, nobody had any experience with website building and WordPress and anything like that. But that's when I started learning WordPress, and we built our first website in 2019. It's been tweaked and modified, since then. And so in the beginning of time, my blogs have no SEO built in. I mean, if I had time, I'd go back and fix all that, but they all are, have SEO and whatnot built in now. So what we do is, even though it's Philadelphia area and we're based in, the suburbs of Philly, we have people come from around the world because most of what we do is on Zoom. We used to run 1,000 events a year in person in the greater Philadelphia area. I don't even know how we did that, but we did. And then when the pandemic hit, we went on Zoom, and we're down to 600 or less events a year.
That's
Well, in
still a crazy
2020,
amount.
yeah, in 2020, I took on another group. It's called BANG, Business Executives Networking Group. So that is a special interest group chapter for mid to senior level executives. At the end of July 2023, I took on Chem Pharma Professional Association. So it's another, mid to senior level chem pharma or chemistry, chemical engineering, pharmaceutical, biotech, biolife sciences, and allied industries organization. And it was a lot of organizations got hit by the pandemic. So, just because of our size, I guess we've absorbed, a couple of these other organizations so they can keep on living. So they're, considered special interest groups. But we are what I would call a DEI BAJ, which I already said: diverse, equity, inclusion, belonging, accessibility, justice. We are open to everyone. So any professional who wants to join is absolutely welcome. We do have an LGBTQ plus chapter for career support. And I think that and the Chem Pharm and the BANG are only special interest group chapters right now. Everything else is general. But we have a lot that's free. But we can't do everything for free because, hey, we provide a service. We have some expenses that we have to pay. But, you will never be able to attend up to 600 events a year for $49 a year or $59 a year. Although we may raise our rates in 2024.
Yeah,
but,
that's pretty
you get a whole bunch of,
it's
you
worth
get a whole
it.
bunch of goodies, when you sign up. And on top of that, you're talking less than $1 or $1.25 a week, for amazing career resources. I have subject matter expert speakers come in. So if anybody's a subject matter expert speaker that would like to speak for us pro bono, we are a nonprofit, then I'd love to chat with you. And we have our standard volunteers. We have an interview prep. So we have a recruiter of 30 years who's retired now, and he will do free mock interviews with people that show up at his session. That's worth a couple $100 for free.
For sure, for sure. That's invaluable right there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I teach LinkedIn. So I do a standard 3-hour LinkedIn workshop every month on the third Saturday of the month. So believe it or not, LinkedIn part 1, part 2, part 3, 9 hours worth of free LinkedIn training. Plus I do other LinkedIn workshops and whatnot, but through one library on Zoom, I do these 9 hours worth of LinkedIn training. And you know what? Next month, September 2023, 10-year anniversary, I've been doing it.
Wow.
Same library. Yeah.
Wow.
It's a lot of hours.
Well, happy anniversary ahead of time.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
I've also been with SCORE. So SCORE.org is a wonderful organization for entrepreneurs where you can get free mentoring, and they also have workshops. So I speak a lot for SCORE. And I had my 10-year anniversary with them in May of 2023.
Yeah. When you speak about it, the genuinity and just the excitement about the work that you do is so just comes very clearly in this conversation. So it's very admirable. You do a lot of things, I'm sure, helping a lot of people. Being in the career space, I know how much it's needed. So it's really kudos to you and more power to you for doing these with such excitement and the way you talk about it, it's it's really, really phenomenal. I'll make sure
I
to
love
also
what I do.
share. Yeah, it comes off very clearly. It comes off very clearly. I'm going to make sure to include all these different links as well in the show notes as well for those that are listening and maybe don't have a chance to write anything down at the moment, but I will make sure to include
Great.
all of that. So before I ask you my last question, of course, LinkedIn is probably the platform to connect with you, but is there anywhere else that people can find you or connect with you?
So on LinkedIn, underneath my picture, right now I've got it titled More Gobsmacking Links. That is my link tree. And hopefully you will click on that. And then if you click on the first button, you'll get to all the Great Careers Group stuff on their link tree.
Perfect.
But there's a place where I have all my publications, to book a call and whatnot. So, if you can't get on LinkedIn for some reason, it's linktr.ee/Lynne Williams, linktr.ee/Lynne Williams. And Lynne is with an E, Lynne. Remember the E for education.
I love that. The last question I have for you is, what is one question you wish people asked themselves more often?
Did I make networking a habit? It's so important to meet new people and build relationships. I think that is like a very strong message to younger folks, Gen Z, millennials. It's all about people and relationships. And did you go out there and make an effort to meet people and connect and build relationships?
Yeah, that's beautiful. Great note to end on. Go out there and build relationships. Whatever you're doing right now, just end it on this conversation and go do it. Lynne, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. You've shared a lot of interesting information. I've definitely learned quite a few new things, particularly about LinkedIn and resumes and ATSs. So thank you, and thank you for the work that you do.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.